Hey, welcome to this video. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about the chemistry of the sexual mind. I'm going to explain you what happens in your mind in terms of neuroscience, in terms of the chemicals that affect your sexual life. And I really hope that you find this video interesting, because I think the more we know about ourselves, about what happened inside of us, it's better, and we can actually handle things better and understand things better, because at the end, when we understand, it's easier to take action or to change things. So I'm going to tell you about 4 chemicals that affect us. There's more, but these 4 are the most important ones when we have sex or in our sexual life in general, and not only sexual life but also relationship, because it both have to be together. We're talking about love, relationship, and sex together. And this applies also for people who are single, because even if you're not in a long-term relationship, this applies to you, if not now, in the future. The first chemical I want to talk about are endorphins. Endorphins are released when we do exercise or when we have done something that make us very tired. Okay, endorphins, what they do is they help us relieve the pain that we have in our body, in our muscles, after doing a big workout, a big exercise, walking for a long period of time. This goes back to 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years ago, when people went hunting, they walked for hours, for miles, and they were tired. And endorphins, what they do is they come up and they help us with the pain. They relieve the pain that helps us keep going. Actually, endorphins are called also the running high. Why? Because people who do marathons and run a lot, or do a lot of workout in general, after you do it, you feel very, very good. There's a sensation of pleasure after doing a strong workout. That sensation of pleasure has to do a lot with endorphins. Endorphins are going to give you a big sensation of pleasure after you have sex. When you have sex, normally you sweat and you do some exercise. Most of the time you do some exercise. And you have that sensation of pleasure right after you have sex. Probably you've experienced that before. When you finish, it's like, whew, and then you feel like that sensation in your body. That has to do with endorphins. It also has to do with the second chemical I'm going to talk to you about, which is dopamine. But let me tell you about dopamine first. In terms of when we fall in love. Dopamine is also called the love drug. Why? Because dopamine is what we release when we fall in love. When we find someone that we like, that is very attractive for us, dopamine is released in quantities we don't even understand. Huge quantities. You've experienced that before. When you're falling in love and you do silly stuff and you cannot only think about being with that person and having sex with that person, and that's the only thing in the world for you, experienced that before? Okay, that's dopamine in your brain. Dopamine is there to focus, to help you focus on what you have to do. And in this case, it's focused on being with that person all the time. It's like an obsession almost, okay? Why does that happen? Because it's a matter of maintaining the species. It's very primitive again. This comes from many, many, many thousands of years ago. In order for men to actually reproduce themselves and not lose, like the species would die if we don't have sex because we don't have kids. It's like maintain your focus on being obsessed of having sex all the time with that same person until you actually make sure that you have kids. That's the primitive thing about dopamine. Now, today, we have a different way of living, of course, but it works the same way. We get obsessed with that person. Normally this lasts about 6 months to 2 years, 3 years maybe, depends on the person. There's no rule for that. And what happens is it goes to a peak and it starts to go down, down, down until it comes back to normal. And that's when many people think they're not in love anymore. This is one of the things about dopamine. People after 2 years or 3 years, it's like, okay, I don't feel the same things that I used to feel at the beginning. You felt that before, I'm sure. When you feel that doesn't mean that you don't love the person. That means that your dopamine is gone to normal levels. And now you're living a normal life, so to say, your brain is normal again, and you're not, obsessed or crazy or full of drugs in your brain in terms of dopamine. Because dopamine is highly addictive. And this you need to know. Dopamine is it's activated. It's the pleasure hormone. Dopamine is released when we do something that we like, for example, or something that we need to survive. Let's say food. When we eat, dopamine is released. And it's released because we like, that's why we have pleasure in eating, because when we eat, we feel that pleasure and we want to eat again. That's why humans seek pleasure all the time, because of that dopamine hit. When we do something that we like, we get that dopamine hit and we want to do it again. For example, eating, like things about surviving, okay? Like eating, but also sex. When we have sex, we enjoy it, we have pleasure, we want more sex. And we want that all the time. The danger about dopamine, highly addictive. It's also related when you like smoking, it's the same thing. Dopamine hit, you like smoking and you smoke again and you smoke again. Drugs, gambling. Today also with mobile phones, same thing. Cellular phones is the same thing. It's a dopamine hit. When we get that ding, we like that. We get that dopamine and we want more and more and more. And dopamine is highly addictive. And it's really good from one side, but it's very highly addictive, and you need to know that you need to know where the limit is. Dopamine is related with the reward system. So when we talk about sex, and I'm going to talk about this when we want to maintain a long-term relationship alive, we want to have hits of dopamine. We're going to seek things to do. They're going to give us those hits of dopamine, because the dopamine is going to make us want to have sex. As I said, we want to have pleasure. We seek, as animals, we seek to have pleasure, and dopamine helps us to seek that pleasure. So we're going to do things that are going to give us this hit of dopamine, especially in a long-term relationship when we want to do things that make us want to have sex when we're not having so much sex. Things like that we're going to do. I'm going to talk about that later in a different video. Dopamine goes down, as I was saying before, goes down to normal levels. Now we think that we don't love this other person. And that's why we have these other chemicals, two chemicals more, which I'm going to talk about, serotonin and oxytocin. Now, these are the social chemicals. These are the chemicals that bond us together with the other people. Okay, serotonin is the third chemical, and it's a bonding chemical, it's a social chemical, and it is released when we feel respected, when we feel that we are valued and we feel recognized. Okay, so for example, if you just got your degree, and you're there and you're getting your degree, your parents are there, you feel recognized, you feel proud, you feel valued. That's serotonin, what's released. Not only you, but also your parents are going to release that, or your friends or your brothers and sisters, whoever are with you, are going to release that serotonin. So it has to do with feeling proud. In terms of sex or relationship here, again, now we are talking about relationship more than sex. When you're with your couple, it's important to be proud and feel recognized by your couple. If you don't feel that recognition by your couple, and what I mean by recognition is that she or he is proud of you and wants to be with you and it's happy to talk about you. Serotonin is the happy drug. Actually, serotonin is what Prozac, you know it. It's these antidepressants. They're serotonin, just to make you feel happy, to make you feel without any wrath, with being social and being, in a happy mood, okay? And that's serotonin, okay? It has to do with emotions as well. Very, very much to do with emotions. So it's the happy drug, and it's the drug that you release when you feel proud, when you feel connected, when you feel respected by other people. And in terms of relationship, your couple feels that for you or with you. The fourth chemical I want to talk to you about is oxytocin. Oxytocin is the bonding chemical. For me, it is the most important chemical that we have, because it's the one that bonds everything together. After we have all these chemicals in our brain, oxytocin is what makes us want to bond and be with that other person at a deeper level. It has to do with the actual love, the love that we feel for the other person, that connection that we feel for the other person. Oxytocin is released when we, for example, hug someone. Actually, many people say that a hug can say more than 1,000 words. So it's what you feel when you're hugged. It's when you feel when you, for example, cuddle after having sex. It's what you feel when you connect with the other person, and it has to be physical. That's why it's so important to maintain that physical contact. When the dopamine is gone and you don't have that crazy love feeling, or like feeling in love sensation, now oxytocin is going to kick in. And oxytocin is going to make you feel connected with this other person. And you have to maintain that deep bonding by touching. You must touch in order to be able to feel and release oxytocin. So When you're with a couple, make sure you cuddle up after you have sex. Make sure you cuddle up at night. Make sure you go together to bed and actually do these things. Maintain that as a habit. Make sure you touch, hold hands. Very important. Oxytocin is released in high quantities when you have an orgasm. When you have an orgasm, oxytocin is released. Why? Because it's a way of connecting with that person. It's helping you to say, hey, you're having sex with this person, you're having an orgasm with another person, and you connect with that person. You have that attachment with that person. And that's why it exists, and that's why it's released. And it has to do with, again, 1,000 years ago, thousands and thousands of years ago. It just wanted to make sure that you stay together so you can make, in terms of family, for example, stay together to grow a family together. And the oxytocin is the one that bonds you together. And this is the one that you want to release all the time when you want to have a long-term relationship. When the dopamine is gone, we want to maintain that relationship alive. And oxytocin is the key for that. With little doses of dopamine to get you with that sex, it's going to help you with that sex, like having sex. That's those little dopamine hits that you want to maintain as well. But oxytocin is the one that's going to make you connect and be together and want to be together for something that's higher than yourself. Let's say family, let's say a project together, you don't have to have kids, but those things that are beyond you reach that goal that's beyond yourself, and it's something that you want to do together with someone. That's when oxytocin is very much needed. To keep the oxytocin up, you need to do things, get out of the routine, do things, not sexual. I'm not talking about sexual things here. Now we're talking about touch, we're talking about romantic things, bringing flowers, things like that. This is oxytocin. The details you do to maintain a relationship alive, that's oxytocin. Anything you want to do to get out of the normal things and to maintain things that are romantic, not sexual, romantic, those things are going to help you keep that oxytocin. And make sure that you maintain physical touch when you do these things. A lot of hugging, a lot of patting in the butt if you need to, that's also oxytocin. You know, it's fun as well, so make sure you do this. Very, very important. Oxytocin is the key to maintain a sexual relationship alive for a long term, because it's the only way to maintain a relationship alive for a long term. Nature is very, very intelligent. When a woman is to give birth, it releases tons of oxytocin to get that bonding with the mother and the child. It develops that bond. So anything that has to do with bonding, oxytocin is there. When we have a deep conversation with someone, oxytocin is released, especially if we hug at the end. It's like a connection you make, and you must have that present. So this is it for the chemistry video. I hope that it serves you, and I hope it helps you understand what happens in your brain when you have all these things. And I'm going to be referring to this video throughout the course, so you can watch it anytime you want as well. So I will see you in the next one.